I am Games, and this is a podcast!
I am also Games, and I'm here too. Even though you're the one who played Kingdom Hearts 3 to some extent, I merely watched, and it looked pretty miserable.
Well, you're the one who got out lucky in that equation, my dude. Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3. I was never a huge fan of Kingdom Hearts. Been in the video game playing biz for a while. I remember when Kingdom Hearts 1 came out. I remember Kingdom Hearts 2. I remember trying to understand why there were so many other fucking little games. I started playing Kingdom Hearts in 2017. And I played 1, I played 2, I played a couple of the spin-offs. Fun, not like great games. I definitely wasn't blinded by nostalgia or anything. And I've never really been a huge Disney fan, so that kind of attraction didn't do much for me, but I could appreciate it as like someone who like understands like, oh yeah, Mulan, I saw that movie as a kid. That's quaint.
That's the weird thing about it, is that it's so basic, and it's just like the movies haven't gone anywhere. Like
Right.
I feel like maybe at some point there was the excitement of like seeing the things you like in a game, but like first of all, most of these movies have games. Like, it's not as if these characters only exist in video game form in Kingdom Hearts.
I can explain to you the appeal of Kingdom Hearts. Let's rewind the clock back to like 2004. The old school internet. You're like, you're 13 to 16 years old or whatever, and you're the target audience for Kingdom Hearts. You're on like fanfiction.net reading fanfiction and shit, and all of a sudden this game comes along where you get to be the self-insert character in your favorite Disney movies and Final Fantasy shit.
I think Kingdom Hearts 1 was like 2001.
Something like that.
It's pretty fucking old.
So that's the appeal. The appeal of Kingdom Hearts 1 was that I can interact with these movies that I love so much as a little kid.
Yeah.
It's not just playing the game. It's like you are in the game now. You are Sora, and Sora gets to talk to Hercules. And I remember Hercules. It's like, did you listen to the PCP with Munchie first figured out what and like flipped shit when he realized you and Hercules were friends?
Yeah.
Like that's it.
I get that on some level, but like again, it's like there are Hercules games. Right. You can just play as Hercules.
But you don't want to play with Hercules.
Like, I think that something like that one Disney Skylanders ripoff,
Disney Infinity,
that made more sense to me.
Sure.
As like all the Disney characters are in this game. You can you play as them. You are having a Disney adventure. It's not like an unrelated Square Enix game that happens to have Disney characters in it. And like in all the games, they just retell the movies. Like,
yeah, well,
nothing new happens.
2 went off the beaten path a little bit, but 1 was very much just like very technically limited, poorly implemented recreations of the movie events with Sora, Donald, and Goofy there haphazardly tacked on.
Really, like, because I remember I played Kingdom Hearts 1 most of the way through in like 2005, and like it's weird because simultaneously I can say I see the appeal, but also that I don't see how these games have held up in the cultural memory, because first of all, the mechanics suck. Like, the combat feels floaty, and like the menu system, like the real-time menu system, I just don't think it plays that well. Like, and I understand that if you do master it, and there is fun to be had. I'm not saying that like there's nothing good about it, but like if I could choose a way to play a game, this is not the mechanics that I would think of. This is not the most fun type of game. I'm not saying that like it's unplayable, but like when I don't think of it as like something I would want to return to. It's like almost as if you have to put up with it.
There are better action RPGs.
Right. You learn these mechanics so that you can play this game regardless of the fact that you would not choose to play a game with these mechanics. You choose to play Kingdom Hearts, and then you learn those mechanics so that you can play Kingdom Hearts, is the way I feel about that.
Yeah,
that kind of structure.
I would agree with that. I think there are some people like Nate who can really get into it. Like, he's obsessed with like Kingdom Hearts 2 high level play.
Particular. Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 2 probably had the best gameplay.
And I understand that at high levels there's there is a certain amount of complexity to it, and I appreciate that if you just... There is like a weird sweet spot it hits where it's complicated and it's difficult at those higher levels, and if you really master it, like, it's just the right amount of, like, patiently trying to fight your way through a long-ass fight, but while also being active, you know? Right. I would say that, like, obviously the Souls games are, like, an example of something similar that's way better, because it's way more active, and there's still a lot of thought that goes into it, but it's more reactions than it is just, like, having to know the fight. Like, you do have to know the fight, but, like, on a moment-to-moment, it's about, like, you know, inputting the buttons rather than, like, having memorized every, you know, like, what sequence of button presses needs to be made in order to deal damage, sort of thing. And, like, the battles at that high level of play go on fucking forever. And, like, I watched him play through this one fight with Aqua that, you know, he considered to be, like, one of the best boss fights, but it went on for so long, and I was just like, you know, it's repetitive, it's the same thing over and over again. And in Kingdom Hearts 3, the boss fights last an eternity. They have, like, 6 life bars, and, like, when you're playing on regular mode, it's not even hard. Like, it's really easy. It just goes on and on and on. Yeah. And, you know, I don't see why you'd want to play such a long battle with not the most satisfying controls, with not the most satisfying mechanics. And, you know, again, Nate's opinion of Kingdom Hearts 2 is that it is the most satisfying mechanics for him. So, you know, if he feels that way, if you feel that way, I understand.
Sure.
If you just really love those mechanics. But for me, I look at him and I'm like, I just feel like it wouldn't even be hard to tweak this to make it feel better. Like, why does the Keyblade feel so floaty and shitty to use? Like, do these people who made the game not know how to make a satisfying hit?
Well, it just seems like the floatiness of the Keyblade seems like it wants you to do aerial combat. Like, that's the idea. Mm-hmm. 'Cause, like, a lot of the times when I was playing through Kingdom Hearts 2, and even a bit in Kingdom Hearts 3, I would jump and attack just because the air combat worked better with the floatiness than doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
But I just... the whole thing is, like, especially with Kingdom Hearts 2, is that there's a lot of interesting ideas built on top of an average at best core. And so as much as you iterate on it, as cool things you add to it, the foundation is flimsy.
I think that applies to every aspect of the game. Like the storyline, for instance, where, like, the first game, as many people have noted, the first game had a pretty simple story, but they kept tacking more stuff onto it. And it's like, at some point, it would have been wiser to throw away what we had and build something new. Because if you keep just attaching things, it's kind of like, I think of those over-designed characters when, like, you know, you've got just a guy in t-shirts and jeans, but then you put armor on him, and then you put greaves, but they're from a different armor set, and you just keep adding more stuff, and it's like, well, now it just looks like an ugly clusterfuck. And Kingdom Hearts 3 is the epitome of that.
Right.
It's just, they kept adding more shit, but none of it is polished. I think Donkey said, you know, it's got a million mechanics, none of them are good, you know, like,
right. There's a breadth of things to do, but none of them have any depth,
right? And
or satisfaction even.
And I feel like if the game had just cut down the scope, it would be more fun, because if it was just nonstop doing different things all the time, it wouldn't be quite so unbearable as, like, doing the same repetitive combat sequence for 2 hours in between doing new things.
Yeah, the main thing with the combat is just that there's a lot of, like, spectacle, right? Yeah. But none of it has any real depth, and so it's not that engaging. Like, it's pretty cool when you're just playing, and all of a sudden, oh, I can hit this button, and this crazy, like, fucking Disney attraction is made into an attack, and, like, it's visually crazy. There's tons of particle effects, and, like, the detail's great. But, like, that's just, like, you see it once, it's nice to look at, but none of that's engaging. You don't control really anything in that.
And like, then you do it 50 times a level.
And the base combat, there's no real combos or anything. It's just like you mash X, or you can mash X in the air, and there's just not a lot to do. And it just becomes
Yeah.
This is me playing the game, and then occasionally I'll dodge.
Everyone I've watched play this has had a moment where they said, like, I feel like I don't have to do anything. Like, I feel like I don't even need to be, like, I feel like the game is playing itself.
Right, and, like, I feel like they've overcorrected a lot of, like, the Donald thing. A lot of in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, the complaint is, like, Donald won't fucking heal me. Now all Donald does is heal you, so you're never in danger of, like, dying.
It's weird because it's one of those things where you look at the game and you think, how did nobody say anything?
Well, this game's been in development for so long. Who the fuck knows how deep the rabbit hole goes with the way this thing was built?
It's like the same story with Final Fantasy 15, where, like, the reason I never ended up, like, getting into that game is that, like, the number one complaint I heard is that the hits aren't satisfying. And I'm like, isn't that, to me, that is the most important thing. If you're making an action game, the only thing you absolutely need to get right is to make swinging a sword satisfying. And, like, there are Super Nintendo games, like, I think of Soul Blazer, where the game is just, you go, and it just makes a little noise, but, like, every time you swing your sword, it can swing as fast as you can press the button, and it hits the enemy and they get stunned for a second, so they stop moving, and it looks like you're doing damage, and it's really satisfying, and the game is almost nothing more than that. Right. It's just run around and mash the button and kill guys, and it's fun to play because swinging the sword is satisfying. I mean, when you show me a game that took 15 years to make, millions of dollars in development, like, beautiful graphics, crazy shit going on, and swinging the sword is the biggest problem, how do you fuck that up? Yeah. How does nobody say, hey, let's, instead of introducing another Disney attraction attack, let's spend that time fixing the animations so the Keyblade is satisfying.
Right.
Fixing the sound effects.
It's I mean, not to, like, flex too much, but, like, when building the game that I've been working on, that was, like, the thing that I focused the most on. Is, like, the hits have to feel good. You literally,
I'll put fucking Azumi doing her 3-sword slash on screen for this whole video, just so you can see how much more satisfying that looks than the fucking Kingdom Hearts sword slashing.
There was so much more that even went into that. I made sure there was, like, there's, like, hit freezing, so when you hit somebody, the whole game stops for a fraction of a second to really sell the impact. Like, there's screen shake,
like
there's effects, there's all these things had to be layered on top of it, and it was such an interesting experience because when I first built the mechanic, it felt like shit, and each new addition made the hits feel good, to the point now where, like, killing an enemy feels amazing because all these little things come in and add up to make the hit feel visceral. And Kingdom Hearts doesn't really have any of that, and combined with the fact that there's really no variety in the combat, it's really just doing the same X attack and then hitting triangle when it prompts you. It's just boring, and all the spectacle in the world won't save you from that.
And I think a big part of that is, and this has been a consistent problem with Kingdom Hearts since the beginning, is that it doesn't really have level design. Like, it has maps that have, like, a logic of how you progress in the map, but what you actually, like, do running around, there's no real sense of pacing or flow or, like, using the environment to make the enemy encounters different, or, like, fighting an enemy in one world is the same as fighting an enemy in another world. You're always just mashing X combo on enemies, no matter where you happen to be doing that. And, like, whether a world is fun or not really just comes down to, it almost feels like a fucking dice roll. Like, in the first game, there were some levels where they would have a little bit more focus on, like, platforming, and it would be a nightmare. Or they'd have
platforming in one was really
they'd have rough. Like, more focus on, like, exploration, and it would just get really boring. And, like, the only levels that worked were the ones that felt more tight and cohesive because they just had you doing clear tasks one after another, and, like, it didn't take too long. With Kingdom Hearts 3, it just feels like they made the levels as big as they could.
Right.
Like, as big as
we
made
have all
sense.
These extra polygons. Let's just really throw them around. And there's a lot of stuff going on. And, like, I think the reason they picked a lot of the Pixar movies, like, look how close we can get to Pixar. Lamau, this is so crazy. And it's like, it's great, but none of this is fun.
No. And, like, when you were running around fucking Rapunzel's forest, and it's just literally like 3 big sections of open forest where there just are enemies. Like, it looks like you're playing an MMORPG, except even those put more thought into enemy placement. Like,
Sure.
you know, they usually place their enemies in such a way that you could either encounter them one at a time or kite them, or there's areas where enemies are clustered together so that you have to use more strategic approaches. In this game, it's just like, here's a group of guys, here's another group of guys, here's another group of guys.
Spawn. And that's fine enough if you're going through like a linear level. But I kept getting turned around at that because everything looked exactly the same. And when you get into an encounter like that and you're in a forest area that's nondescript and there's like through 2 or 3 paths, it's easy to get turned around in the fight, and then you end up going back, and every time you go to another area the enemies respawn, so it feels like you're going in the right direction, but you're not, and then you end up right back at the save point you were at 10 minutes ago. You're like, well, fuck, now I gotta go back and I gotta fight everybody again.
I think the only way to play some of these maps is to literally just be staring at the mini-map the whole time and skip as many encounters as possible, if you don't want to get confused.
Would probably be fine, because I never really felt the need. I never felt like, oh, leveling up is doing anything effective. I mean, to be clear, we didn't beat Kingdom Hearts. We've only gotten a few hours into it.
I mean, it's miserable. Like,
and it's just not super fun.
When you're playing a game, when you're playing a Kingdom Hearts game and the most fun looking segment is the fucking gummy ship segment, that's when you know you're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting thing for me, and this is like being a Kingdom Hearts fag, is when we go back to Twilight Town, because I want to know what's going on with fucking Roxas and shit, because I love the story in 3 of 5 or 2 days, or as much as you can love a Kingdom Hearts story. And I'm interested to know what happens with those characters, and they don't even resolve that. You gotta go back and wait a million years, and like, I don't want to keep digging into this game just to get resolution on these characters I kind of care about.
Yeah.
And that's just gonna be buried under so much other shit.
Watching the cutscenes is inadvisable. Badly acted, long pauses between everything. Who cares about the story? Like, it's so complicated. I mean, if you've seen Donkey's video, he talked about the story enough, I think.
I mean, there's a
I don't think there's anything I could add to that.
Yeah, like the section with Mickey giving the backstory on Ansem is as ridiculous in context of the game is like cut out. Like, it just comes and happens. Because, like,
this game is almost like proof of everything everyone's ever said about Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, because, like, it feels like a lot of these characters are expositing all the shit that happened in between 2 and 3, because they know half the people playing the game didn't play any of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
But all the spin-offs are direct sequels, including the mobile game.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. It's fucking insane.
I feel like when people talk about Kingdom Hearts, there's always been people who make fun of it, who like slag it off, who say it's too complex, or the story is dumb, or the characters are dumb, this and that. And like, people who actually like the games can mount a defense like, okay, well, here's why I like it. Here's what's good about it. This game feels like it is exactly all the problems everyone's ever had with the series, with no recourse, with none of what that other side was like. That, you know, oh, well, there's a hard mode, you can get to this real complexity in the combat, and that is, you know, when you play on a certain level that becomes interesting. It's not there in the same way, you know? So you're just left with a game that's like all the worst things about Kingdom Hearts, in a weird attempt to make it, I think, more accessible. Like, I think they were trying to baby it down to make it like to have so much spectacle and so much going on that if you played it, you would inevitably come away like, wow, I saw so much shit and it was so exciting. There's such a big, expansive story with so many characters, but like, they just made a clusterfuck.
Yeah, it's just a lot of shit. It's like a Star Wars prequel frame in a video game.
It is. There's
like, it's so dense.
It does remind me of the prequels, now that you mention it.
I mean, the stilted dialogue, the fucking crazy, all over the place aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then to, like, actually sit through the cutscenes in somewhere like the Tangled World and realize it's literally just the movie with most of it missing. So, like, none of the emotional gravitas of the story is there. So what is the point? Like, why tell this same story but badly?
I just think it's that autistic fan fiction thing where like the movie's happening and I'm canonically there.
I think the moment that said the most to me about the mindset behind the game when I was watching you play it is when you get to the Tangled dance part. So at the end of the Tangled part, you have to do this weird dance mini game that's not particularly fun. It's like awkward and weird, but most importantly, Rapunzel keeps doing this same exact dance move. And if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, but I'm pretty sure that we see her do that move in the movie.
Yeah.
And, like, so in the context of the film, it's just a very short scene. So, like, yeah, it makes sense you only see her do a couple of things. But to see her in an extended dance scene just doing that over and over again with no other dance moves, it's like...
It's the visual equivalent of a CD skipping.
It's like it breaks the, like, if you saw this scene and you're like, oh, Rapunzel does a full dance this time because this is a video game, it can be as long as it wants, it doesn't need the same sense of pacing as a film, so oh my god, I get to see Rapunzel do like a full dance scene. That's fan service. That I get. Having her do just what she does in the movie,
right?
As in, like, hey guys, it's the thing you already know. It's like, well, I have the movie, and now it just looks ridiculous because she's doing the same thing over and over again. You would think if they wanted to
do, because like it's a rhythm mini game, is what the whole dance sequence is. You would think they would do something like in the terms of Project Diva, and they had like a scripted sequence with like Sora and her dancing, and then you just press buttons in time, and there's like a cutscene that plays out in the background. Because then you would get an extended scene of that sequence, but instead it's just a lazy loop of like, you know, they just reanimated that one shot over and over and over again while you walk around.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why?
Everything in it feels like they just never stopped coming up with ideas. And then they just, like, built it to the most rudimentary degree possible and went on to the next idea.
It feels like 15 years worth of ideas with no filter.
Right.
Because that's probably exactly what it is.
Like, you would think 15 years that they would have time to polish something. Like, why didn't they just build a game and then polish the game instead of building endlessly onto the same game and then just, I guess at some point saying, like, well, this has to come out now or else we can't take it anymore.
Right,
I mean, I'm sure this game I'm sure it probably has had to be completely rebuilt a couple of times considering the... you know, like, I mean, entire 2 console generations.
It looks better than a PS3 game, so they've definitely went back and tweaked their engine at some point.
Yeah. So, it's, I mean, I guess this is what you should expect, because, like, anytime something is in development for this long, it's never because things were going well.
Sure.
It's never because it took 15 years to make, because it shouldn't. Like, there's no game that should take that long.
Especially when you're, you know, a multi-million-dollar company and you have a huge staff on board.
Who previously, you know, made Final Fantasy X in, like, what, under 2 years?
Something like that.
Which is one of my favorite games of all time. And, like, it's fully realized. It's long, it's engaging, and, like, I would love to see a game that was basically Final Fantasy X, but with a little more, you know, like, just... with better graphics, with more expansive levels, and, like, you know, just without the technical limitations of an early PS2 game. But instead, they keep trying to build these, like, ludicrous things that they can't do. Like, that just... the amount of time that it takes to make a game is not enough. And then when they run out that time... and then they have to keep updating it because technology keeps changing and, you know, expectations keep changing. And it's like, you can't try to make a project that would have made sense in 2009 in 2019. Sure. You know, it's inherently going to run into problems every step of the way. Like, I don't know, were their eyes bigger than their head or mouth? What's the word? What's the phrase?
I'm not sure. You butchered it so bad I don't even know what you were trying to say.
Well,
I don't know. It seems like Square might just work better under limitations, you know, because like some of the best games they've put out recently in terms of RPGs have been the Bravely Default series and Octopath, and like those are much smaller games with simpler scopes, and like they seem to be more successful.
Certainly critically more successful.
Maybe Nomura is just They need to oust him. He needs to get out of there.
He didn't make 15. That was was it Tabata or whatever?
Yeah.
I think that they just... I really hope, like... I want to believe that now that Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 are out, that, like, from this point forward, they can look at what they've been doing with a more critical lens and change it. Like, not to say that I necessarily give that much of a fuck, because obviously there's other game development studios that are doing fine, and there's no reason to continue backing Square on this expectation that one day they will finally make something good. It's like, well, we don't care if Square makes anything good. Most of the people who worked on the games you care about are not there anymore, you know?
Yeah,
and
it's weird.
It makes me really sad when I think about how, like, you know, all these people were waiting on Final Fantasy 15 and didn't go to play, like, Lost Odyssey or Blue Dragon or any of the games that, you know, the actual Final Fantasy director, creator went on to do, or, like, you know, like, the talented staff who made the games you love have moved on.
Well, that's just that's a whole other podcast topic of, like, you know, paying attention to people and not companies.
Absolutely. Well, do you have anything else you want to say about Kingdom Hearts 3? I feel like there's got to be...
I mean...
There's a lot to unpack with it, but at the same time, do you even want to stare into that void?
There's a whole fucking bunch. I mean, at some point, I'll probably try and give it another go, because I would still like, just for some weird reason, to go through all of Kingdom Hearts and try and parse it, but... You know, now that I've played a little bit of 3, it's just like, do I even want to put in the effort to get to such a mediocre endpoint?
I think people trick themselves into going down that rabbit hole all the time, because, like, I always have that instinct of, like, oh, this is a major game franchise, I want to play all of them and wrap my head around it. But, like, at the end of the day, you're playing a lot of bullshit because it happens to have the same name as something that might have been good at some point.
You gotta respect your own mortality at some point.
Right,
be
exactly.
Like, I'm gonna fucking die.
And there's enough good shit out there that, like, you don't gotta spend 60 hours playing Kingdom Hearts 3, you know, when there's other things. And, like, granted, you know, at this point, from a literal perspective, you paid money for the game, and it would cost money to get a different game. But you also have a huge...
I did pay money for that game.
You also have a huge shelf of games you haven't played that you've paid money for that just happen to not be relevant to the culture at this exact moment, but which could be by way of making them relevant.
I could play Kingdom Hearts 3, or I could finally try Otogi 2, which looks really cool.
Right. We've got so many games. And it's really a shame almost that we even allowed ourselves to get wrapped up in this. I mean, you had some excitement over it being Kingdom Hearts and having played them, but, like, for me, it's like, I know that if this wasn't just the name and the fact that it's going to be relevant, I would have no reason to be interested.
I mean, my mentality was that Kingdom Hearts 1 was a decent game. Kingdom Hearts 2 was a better game. I was hoping that Kingdom Hearts 3
would be a great game.
Would be a better game.
Right.
And it is not a better game.
Yeah, I mean, Duke Nukem Forever was not a great game. Final Fantasy 15 is debatable, but I wouldn't say it's a great game. You know, like when something takes this long, it's because it was having problems. And just because it eventually gets released doesn't mean they fixed the problem. It means that they made it shippable.
Yeah.
But, and, like, at some point they have to turn a profit on it because it's just lost too much fucking money. Or not turn a profit, but they have to make some money off of it. Like, whatever they got to ship it out, or else they're going to have to cut their losses and fucking, you know.
Yeah, games in development hell might not be true art, but like true art, they are merely abandoned.
Yeah. Well, that is enough for Kingdom Hearts. Let us know what you think about these podcasts. If you want us to keep releasing them as frequently as, I don't know, every fucking day. We could do one of these basically every day.
Yeah.
We could just go back through our whole gaming history, pick up any random game. Let us know if there's things you want us to podcast about. We can bullshit our way through 30 minutes if we really have to, or 10 minutes. These didn't have to be as long as they are. But, you know, we're just trying things out, seeing how people feel. So let us know down in the comments all of your thoughts and feelings. And I am Games.
I am also Games.
Signing out.